One of the things that we talk a lot about in the connection codes is getting stuck in a cycle or a cyclone when things are really beginning to spiral in your home. And those are typically come across as arguments, fights, but sometimes it can come across as neglect, not even experiencing each other, living in silence at times. So if you find yourself stuck in a cycle or a cyclone, today we are going to be talking about how you can actually reframe your conversations with your partner in a healthy relationship. So you are the team against the cycle, against the cyclone, versus you and your partner against each other. So welcome to the Connection Codes. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife and partner, Phillis Hill. And together, they have founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we are so glad you're here.
Yes. Hello, world.
Hi, friends. Well, it's been a minute.
Since we've been together.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have been on an incredible 16-day cruise to Hawaii.
So we should just spend the whole podcast talking about that?
We could, yes. It was epic. It was the
Lot of
first
joy.
time that we
That's
were
crazy.
on a cruise that long. A little bit of fear going into it, like, that many sea days. And we loved it. Absolutely loved it. Had a blast. Got to unplug for many, many days, and just, it's like a different world, and really had fun connecting with each other. We played a ton of gin rummy, and who dominated that?
No one knows.
Would you like to share who dominated
No.
that?
I can take a
skip
guess,
that
I think I'm sitting next to the
I
winner.
don't know how you cheat at gin rummy, but I'm pretty sure somebody did. 'Cause it was
Well,
ridiculous.
but what's crazy is that the first week, Glenn was killing me. Like, it was so not fun.
Okay, not that much killing you.
I lost every single hand.
No,
And then we
not
did
true.
Hawaii
I
for
have the record of it.
4 days. And then
Go to the link in the bio. You'll see.
on the
Okay,
way
no.
home, somehow I got ahead, and I stayed ahead the rest of the time.
Okay, 5 hands. If you know gin rummy, 5 hands in a row. She went out in 2 draws.
Oh, wow.
So I was minus all my cards at 5 hands in a row. And at that point, I just threw the deck over the board. It was intense.
I love that. I want to talk about Hawaii though as well, because you met up with Connection Coders Ryan and Angie, and they
Yes.
hosted y'all and
Yes.
hosted an event while you were
amazing.
there in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that I want to point that out, one, because Ryan and Angie, if you're listening, like y'all had an incredible time with
Yes,
them.
Oh,
we
my
did.
goodness.
Oh,
Yeah.
my word.
The photos looked awesome. Like
Yes.
everything looked so incredible, and meeting their community, meeting
That's so special.
the people that they care about most is really beautiful. But what I love about it is that it shows so much of who the two of you are, that truly Dr. Glenn and Phyllis want to know this community. They have a
Yeah.
heart to like meet the people listening to this podcast and taking the foundations courses, and that are actually doing this work of, healing and improving their marriage, living a life of connection. And so we put out like, hey, as soon as you booked the trip, I was like, oh, Ryan and Angie are there. And I knew they were there because I've emailed with them. We've gotten to know them now through email. So I immediately reached out, and they were like, we would love to see them. So if we know where you are, when Glenn and Phyllis are traveling, they will want to know you. They will want to see you. And if you say, well, I just want to host an event with them.
Yeah.
Do you think they would want to do an event with me? Yes. Y'all, I think you love speaking
Yes.
probably more than anything
Yeah.
in the connection codes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so if you would love to host them, to have them, please reach out, send us an email, and we will set that up.
Yeah, and it's just so amazing to me being with Ryan and Angie. We had never met them. I think we had Zoomed together once just in preparation for this event, for our visit. And it's just stunning to me. And I do believe that's the essence of the connection codes. We were so bought. They met us at the airport.
No, at the boat dock.
Oh, that's right, the ship, of course. And it's just bizarre because, we see each other. you would think that we had known each other for years and years and years, probably grew up together, going to high school together. We spend the day with them, and it was so sad leaving them.
Yeah.
And if you back up 10 feet, it's like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. We just met these people a few hours ago. What do we care?
Yeah.
And for all we know, we're never going to see them again. But and as we were leaving them, a Connection Codes protocol is there's an upside and a downside to everything. The upside is just so beautiful and so powerful and so deep and rich and just washed over us. The downside is, wow, that was so intense separating from them. But again, our culture says, oh, well, you have to know each other for years and years to develop that relationship of depth. No, you have to have depth to develop a relationship of depth. And the Connection Codes are all about depth. So it was a just spectacular visit.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm glad that you're saying that. I think that people really need to hear that it doesn't take long.
Right.
It takes depth to get to know somebody. So even this morning, we may just be changing our topics. I don't know. We'll see where this ends up. This morning, a dear friend of y'all's is moving, and she's a Connection Coder. And I just met her last year through y'all when we moved here. And we've only hung out a handful of times, but the depth happened immediately.
Yeah.
And I feel so much shame over how sad I am that she's moving. And I've only known her, we've only hung out 8 times maybe in the last year.
Yeah.
And so I just want to challenge people with that thought that it doesn't take length, it takes depth. And so if you want rich connection and rich relationships, you gotta dig and you gotta go deep with each other. I love that.
It's the authenticity that leads to vulnerability. That's where the bonding occurs. It's not time. You can know people for 15 years and have no real connection with them, no real depth, no bonding. And it just amazes me. Ryan and Angie, and we just adore them. And again, we just met them because I grew up in this culture too. So it's just weird to me. It's to experience it, to observe myself, to observe us as a science experiment. I'm just like, wait, what? That can't be true. They can't matter that much to us. We just met them. But leaving them that night when they took us back to the ship was really intense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also true, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about even in our marriage relationships. Because
oh my gosh.
How often, even in our homes, are we staying at surface level with each other where we're not digging deep with each other? Which is a huge part of the Connection Codes, is it gives you the tool to dig deep quickly and effectively and efficiently. And that's one of the reasons that I was so drawn to it. Initially, it's just like finding out things about Wes that I didn't know 10 minutes before. Wow. And I thought we were deep in our relationship. Yeah. And so I think it's just so powerful.
Yeah, one of the things that we've started doing in sessions with couples is they'll do the wheel, and we do the wheel virtually every session at the very beginning. And then we'll ask them, what percentage of what your partner just shared did you already know?
Oh, wow.
Or conversely, what percentage of what you just shared did your partner not know? And the goal is 100%, 0%. There's not 100, so I get that. But for so many couples, when they're first starting this journey, it's basically 100% that they did not know. He had no idea that she had felt fear earlier that day, felt hurt earlier that day, felt shame earlier that day, because they never reveal themselves authentically and certainly not vulnerably. And so they have no idea. And as they continue their Connection Codes journey, more and more we hear them go, about 100%, maybe 90%. I already knew what was happening with him. I already knew what was happening with her. And then we know that we're getting somewhere. Yeah. Because they're already sharing these things in the moment, which is what we're designed to do. A 12-month-old never hesitates. 3 o'clock in the morning, conveys to mom and dad what's happening for them.
Well, often what I think about is that for so many of us, if you didn't have these tools when you started this relationship, so we're talking about marriage. So,
which is true for us.
Right. We did not have these tools. And so there was so much wounding right away and trauma right away. And so what your psyche does is it says, ooh, protect yourself, protect yourself, protect yourself. And so very quickly you become inauthentic to protect yourself.
Right.
And
that's not because you're bad or wrong or evil. It's actually because you're smart.
Yeah.
For me and for both of us for so many years, Phyllis didn't reveal herself to me authentically because she knew she would be wounded. Again, not that she's thinking that through cognitively,
Right.
but her psyche is going, "Ooh, don't reveal yourself to him. He will harm you.
Yeah.
He will bring
Yeah.
you pain," which I wasn't trying to do. I'm not blaming
Right.
Glenn. I'm sure not blaming Phyllis. That's just what was happening. And so her psyche is actually working on her behalf to keep from being wounded.
And you know, part of it is like, even you just now made some pretty strong statements. I thought you would wound me if I was authentic. I'm not sure that that was even true. My psyche was trying to protect me.
Yeah.
And so I just was so often silent, which I learned a lot of that from my mom. She was
Totally.
very silent.
Yeah.
And so I think I came into this relationship already with that as a definition, kind of like, just be quiet, absorb, absorb, absorb. And so I think the challenge that I have now in life, and the conversations that Glenn and I often have, is that I am like crazy, but I'm 60 years old and I feel like I'm just creeping out. Like I'm opening the door and I'm stepping out, one foot at a time. Is it safe out there? Is it safe out there? And you so often will say to me, like, the filter that I need to run things through is, Glenn is safe for me. But early in our married life, I conditioned us, or myself, to not think you were safe. And so,
But I have to interrupt you. You did not condition us. That's just what happened.
It
That
happened
just sounds
for
like you
me.
did it on purpose. You didn't do it on purpose.
no,
Nobody
I
would
didn't
do
do
that
it on purpose. I didn't
That's just what
know.
happened.
Right. I didn't know that was what was happening.
It's not
True.
an active verb.
But it's like, now I'm having to, I mean, it's such a challenge. Like, I realize that so often now I still think that I'm not safe. And so it's such a complicated thing, especially for you, babe, because I think for you can tell that I'm running it through a filter that you're not safe, and you're trying to be there for me so that I know you're safe, but I'm fighting within myself to actually let go and not because it's exhausting when you're constantly protecting yourself. That's really exhausting. And so, it is circling all the way back to even what we're saying as far as relationships of depth don't require time, they require depth, right? Which is that authenticity. And it's interesting because I think there's times that it's easier for me to be authentic with anybody but you. Because at times it's like, can I be this authentic with you? Is it safe? What will your reaction be? It's almost like it's at a higher cost. Because if I lose a friendship over my authenticity, well, okay, I lost a friendship. But to lose you, it's like, no. That is too high of a cost. And so I'm still going, is it safe? Is it safe for me to share what's happening with me? And, and it's kind of this, like, I would say we have the depth, and yet for me, there's still a layer of protection because of the trauma from our early years of marriage.
Right.
So if you're listening and so much of the connection codes, like on paper, it's like, oh, on paper, this sounds good. But in real life, and we get this question a lot, like, how do we use these tools in my marriage, my most difficult relationships? How do I use these tools? Because I see it on paper and I'm like, that makes sense. We get that a lot. Oh, that really makes sense. Now, how do I apply it in real time in these real relationships? And, you kind of started this podcast, Tira, by saying that the cyclone is not the enemy. Wait, the person is not the enemy. The cyclone is the enemy.
Edit that out.
I just said that totally wrong. The cyclone is the enemy. And it's like, and I do appreciate even the way you said it, the cycle of silence is the enemy. And I think sometimes we think that silence is like yeah, we don't speak to each other anymore, but hey, at least we're not screaming at each other.
Right.
And so people settle right there.
Which is kind of our story. The
We
second
got
decade
there.
of our
Yeah,
marriage, we just
we
learned
got
not to
there.
talk to each other. And we talked about topics, logistics.
We spoke every
We just
day, but
didn't-
it was very limiting. Like we talked about the kids and work and the schedule kind of stuff, but we weren't connecting deeply
Right.
because there was so much wounding there.
Yeah.
And so it's like for, I think a lot of couples, they settle into a silence that, and what's interesting though, is that in all the years working with so many couples, it's like the couples that surprise us, or at least surprise me the most at times, are the most cordial couples. And then you find out, oh, they're cordial for 28 days. And then they blow their lid and are the unbelievably ugly people that no one ever sees except the family, the spouse, the kids. Like,
Just showing their pain is the ugly.
yes, you can only hold it for so long.
Yeah.
And then you explode, but usually you don't do it in public. You do it behind closed doors. And so your family suffers from that pattern, that cycle. But, it's like understanding these tools. For many of us, we have lots of layers to get through. And I think sometimes people will try the tools and go, well, that didn't work, or that hurt too much. And it's like, yeah, because you've got so many layers to get under and get through. And this is the tools that will help you get to that depth. But for some of us, depending on how many years you've been married and how much wounding you've done, you're getting, it's like you're trying to get through concrete, and you've got a lot of work to do to get through all that concrete.
100%. But you can't without that vulnerability. It
Right.
does. It is so scary. I vividly remember because there has been a time, I've referenced it before on this podcast, where I lost a friendship because of my vulnerability, because she finally saw a part of something of who I am. And it was not like a year friendship. We were best friends for 20 plus years, like as deep of a girl that you can be friends with. And she walked out. And so now, like the friend that moved this morning, I remember the second time we ever hung out, I knew she was someone that I was drawn to. I knew she was someone that I could love deeply. So I sat her down. I was like, listen, if we're going to be friends, I need to know if you're going to reject me now. Like, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And I laid out what I believe in. I laid out who I am as a person. I was like, you need to see all of me so you can easily not ever call me again, And so us truly just doing that vulnerability quick and deep and change things so fast.
Yeah.
And it did help that she's a connection coder, and so that already did add a layer of safety to it. But in our marriage, it's like, you're right. Whenever you've already had years and years of hiding certain parts of yourself, to now reveal those parts is terrifying to do. But you will not ever have the relationship that you desire in life if you cannot open that up.
Yeah, and I have to throw in just a side note that, and this was Phyllis's and my story, in so many of our churches, that's who's leading the marriage classes, is the people who have learned not to talk, the people who have learned not to be vulnerable, not to be authentic, because they don't fight very much.
Yeah.
And, maybe they do have the once a month blow up. But everybody else is looking and going, oh, well, they only have a blow up once a month. That's cool. So they have a great marriage. No, they've just learned not to talk, which again, our second decade of our marriage, that was the case. And we were the go-to couple. We led all the marriage classes, marriage seminars, because everybody's like, oh my gosh, Phyllis and Glenn have such a great relationship. Well, no, we just quit fighting.
Yeah.
That does not mean that we were connected at all. We just learned all the trigger topics and we didn't touch the trigger topics. So, and it's been stunning, and we try to share this often, that it's just the last 2 or 3 or 4 years that I've started getting to know this woman. And it's just the last 2 or 3 or 4 years she's started getting to know herself. And I am fascinated, mesmerized, surprised over and over again about who you are and what happens for you. And often, and I don't recommend doing this because it's dangerous, but we're very connected so we can do it, that she'll tell me, share something with me that happens for her. I'm like, what? No, that's not true. Phyllis doesn't feel fear about that. Phyllis doesn't feel hurt in that, and she does. And again, there's so much pain and shame for me because I'm just like, how did I miss that with my best friend for 4 decades? But I did, and she missed it with herself a lot. And it's just been amazing revealing yourself to me and me getting to know you, where I'm like, whoa, I had no idea that's who you are. And there's some vice versa in that, but it's been more for you than for me. But it's spectacular. It's a lot of fun.
So what can people do that are listening that right now they're saying, oh man, we live in a cycle, either because we're either vocally arguing and snapping at each other or picking at each other, but picking in a way that's like not funny, like you can say it's a joke, but if you're criticizing your partner as a joke, it's not really a joke. But you're like living in this surface level, or you have reached the years now where you don't know how to go deep. You have fear of going deep.
Right.
What can people begin to do to turn that around and change that narrative?
Well, so many of the connection codes analogies are there just to help, and we don't really care. I mean, whatever works for you, we just throw so many of them out there so that hopefully something resonates. And that's why we call it the cycle becomes the cyclone, so people can start recognizing and externalizing, and to recognize that Phyllis is not the enemy. She may feel to Glenn like the enemy in that moment. She's not the enemy. The cyclone that happened between us, part of what that does is it helps us to recognize that, it's what's happening between us. It's not Phyllis's fault. It's not Glenn's fault. Phyllis isn't to blame. Glenn's not to blame. And which is what most people do. And the vast majority of couples that come into our office, that's their first objective, is figure out, now, what percentage am I wrong and what percentage is she wrong? And I'm looking for 51% of her wrong, because then I'm not the bad. She's worse than me. And the reality is it's neither of those. So when we externalize that, it helps us to partner together to go, okay, it's the cyclone that's the enemy. And it's the 3 phrases that get us back on track to go, wait, what's happening for us, babe? What's happening? What are we missing? We're missing something here. There's a cyclone on the horizon. I can see it. I can smell it. I can hear it. It's coming. It's at the front door. Let's partner against the cyclone. And we mean literally say those words to each other that, what's happening? It's a cyclone. I can sense it. It's on its way. Okay, hold on. Let's breathe deeply. Let's partner against the cyclone because you are so valuable to me. And I don't want the cyclone, that wretched cyclone, to harm us, to harm you. So let's partner together. And I would encourage everybody literally today, tomorrow, the next time you can sense that cycle speed up with unprocessed emotion, you sense it speeding up, say that to your partner. Say it to yourself and say it to your partner. Go, it's the 3 phrases. What's happening? What are we missing? What are we missing? What's happening here? The cycle's speeding up. It's a cyclone on the horizon. Let's partner together against the cyclone. And if you're new to the connection codes, your partner's eyebrows will raise. They'll be like, wait, what? I thought you were mad at me. I thought you were against me. It's like, no, I'm not against you. I'm against the cyclone, that wretched cyclone that's going to wreak havoc in our home here in the next 5 minutes if we don't partner together against it. Does that answer the question?
Well, I think that is one answer to the question. I know that sometimes if you're listening and you're just stuck, you're overwhelmed, I think we need help more than we realize we need help. And, I think about that. It's interesting. We all have a journey. And sometimes, you go, okay, I'm on a health journey. You may be on a health journey. For me, I think I've shared this some on podcasts that I have pain in my right. I used to say knee. Now it's my whole right leg, my knee, my hip, it's just crazy. And I'm on a journey to figure this out. I've gone to see so many people. I've done all kinds of different treatments. And I'm not going to give up, because if I give up, then it's kind of like saying, at 60, you're giving up on your body and you're just going to live in pain for how old are you going to be? I kind of plan to live to be at least 95, if not 105. So I'm like, wow, I don't want to be in pain for the next 35 years. So I'm not going to give up on this journey. I'm not going to just go, well, I've tried all this and it's not worked. I'm like, I'm going to keep knocking on more doors. So you may be someone who goes, well, I've tried all this stuff with my relationship, with my marriage. I've tried, we've gone here, we've gone there, we've done this program, that one program. Don't give up. And know that asking for help is not bad or wrong or shameful. Like, as in, you may just need a season where someone walks with you through the time of the life that you're living right now, the marriage that you're in. And so I think reach out, have sessions with Glenn or with the two of us, like get this stuff into your life, like immerse yourself in it. That's what everybody always says, like with me, and that you can't just dabble in it. Like if I'm going to get better, I have to really give it 100% for my body, to figure out what's wrong, why I'm in pain all the time. Like that's not something you just dabble in. And so if you are listening and you're like, okay, I believe in what you're talking about. I'm following the connection codes. I've listened to all your podcasts. I've read your book. I've done your masterclass. And I feel like my husband and I are still stuck. Then to realize you get more help. Don't just settle for like, well, it works for everybody else but us. Like get help. And I think that sometimes there's extra challenges like that I think about families with lots of children. You're in a season with extra challenges like that you even need more support to deeply connect with your spouse, or it may be your living situation, or your job stress, or I think about, we've shared so openly on the podcast about Glenn's disorders of the psyche that he deals with, and not to say that I don't have them as well. His numbers are typically higher than mine, and maybe more of them. But that's another factor. It's like you got to know what the filters are that things are going through, and who else is in the room in a sense. And so I think for some of us, we just have extra challenges. So get more help. Get a group together that are connection coders that you're like, let's do the masterclass together. Let's talk about it as friendships. You mentioned our friends this morning that are moving, and she was saying goodbye all week to her closest friends. And she said it was incredible how many of them had the core emotion wheel on their fridges, and that our friendships that, we've introduced that to our friends and have had such deep connection because of the connection codes. And that is so cool to me. Like, build a community of friendships where you are all familiar with the core emotion wheel. And when you can speak that language and you can go there so comfortably is so powerful. So that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, I agree with both. I think that one, you will have a hard time reaching out for help if you're viewing your enemy as the partner, or your partner as the enemy. And so I do think that it is, some of it is a mindset issue. And I'm going to add a caveat right here that we are talking about people that are in relationships where there is not emotional, physical, mental abuse going on.
Yeah.
Because that's a different situation.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you are in a manipulative and in a harmful relationship, we are not talking to you about this. We would love to help you. We would love to support you, but I'm not telling you to reframe your thought that your partner is not damaging you if they are in fact actually damaging you.
Right.
But if you are in a relationship where you're two people that care about each other, you're like, I know that Wes Wages cares deeply about me. So it's so crazy to me that when we are in conflict, which it's been a long time, that he became the enemy, knowing how much he loves me, knowing how much I am on his team and he is on mine, that how quick I could go across those lines, and find my cannons and find my weapons and take him down. Like, how could my goal ever be to take down a man who loves me so well? And so if you're in that type of relationship, but you're still finding yourself in tension and cycles, some of it is view them as this is a person who loves me deeply, and it needs to be me and him against the freaking world, against the cyclones, against whatever it is that's causing you pain. And you do that by recognizing when a cycle is coming. We are now at a point in our relationship where we can see it. Wes and I can have a moment. It's like, whoa, 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 what's happening? You know, like something is happening here. And, you know, I've talked on the podcast that November 11th was our last fight. It's August, almost. It's still into July right now. And that's still the last time we fought. And it's because we've gotten so good at seeing it coming and being able to slow it down and then stating that core emotion.
Yeah, I know you were asking the question rhetorically. You said, you know, how can I see Wes as, you know, the bad guy or whatever you said? And the answer to that is that your limbic system is flooded. You are feeling pain.
Yeah.
Not because you're trying to feel pain. And what moron tries to feel pain, gets up in the morning, oh, my goal today is pain. I've never met that person. So Tira just stepped on a nail. She's got a nail sticking up through her foot. Well, how's she going to behave in the next 30 seconds, the next 2 minutes? I have no idea, but she's going to be a weird version of Tira, and we're going to look at Tira like, what's the matter with that woman? Well, she has a nail in her foot. She is the same brain scans. Her brain is firing pain that she just experienced with Wes. So she's going to behave oddly, detrimentally. She may yell at her kids because she's got a nail in her foot, and her kids are like, Mommy, I need a drink. And she's like, I have a nail in my foot.
Right.
So she's a very bad mom, quote unquote, in the next 30 seconds because she has a nail in her foot. And it's not because she's bad, it's because she's human. That's what happens with humans. And of course, then you have Wes in the equation as well. So the way that happens is not because Tira is bad or dumb or wrong. It's because she's human. That's true for every human on the planet. The other thing I want to mention, and we talked about this right before we started the podcast, because I feel a lot of fear presenting this, but often, and every situation is unique, every human is unique, every couple is unique, but often the best thing that can happen for this couple is for one of them to exit the relationship. And we've had people on this podcast that when they were going through it, it did not feel good and right. And, you know, whatever, he's pissed at her that she left him and took the kids. Now they're like, yep, that's the best thing that ever happened to us because that got our attention, and she should have left 12 years ago. And I'm not trying to dissolve marriages. I'm not working to get these two to legally divorce. I am trying to get one of them or both of them to go, okay, we're making a change here. We are not going to stay in this setup. And I often ask couples with the first, second time I sit with them, and it could be either one of them, but I'll ask her, help me get what happened the third time he yelled at you. The first time he yelled at you, that's bad, that's wrong, not acceptable, but okay, he had the worst day of his life, and it's a crappy moment. The second time he yelled at you, maybe, I don't know, I'm not even voting for that at all, but I think, okay, the third time, she should be out of there. She's like, nope, we're not doing this. This is not acceptable. And again, I'm not talking about permanently leaving, but making an emphatic stand that this is not acceptable. And people often ask us, you know, well, what would have happened for these two if Phyllis had done that? Well, we're never told what would have been, so I can't prove or disprove that. But it would have gotten my attention. It would have gotten our attention a lot more, and certainly far more quickly, a long time ago. And I think we would have made a shift much earlier in our relationship and ended up in a much better place.
Yeah.
Did I present that well?
Yeah, you did present it well. The only part is you're talking about people that are in a relationship that one of them is being harmed mentally, emotionally, like there is yelling, and there's no change happening. Mm-hmm. Your goal is to create change in homes. Yep. And so if you're sitting here doing the same thing every single day and not seeing the change, what do you need to do? Mm-hmm. How drastic do you need to take things to change things so you're not living in pain every single day? Yeah. Because that is how the majority of society is living. Mm-hmm. I know people right now that are literally, I talked to a woman just recently. She's like, I've been doing this for 20 years. 20 years I have lived, and he has disrespected me, and he has talked to me poorly, and I have put up with it. Yeah. And I looked at her, and I was like, you only live once. Mm. Yeah. sign those papers, because she was going to sign her divorce papers on Tuesday. And it's just like, you've got to fight for yourself as well in those situations. And so I think that the important thing is wanting to change your relationship to get connection. And if you have a partner that also desires that, they're going to change real quick. They are going to meet you there, and they're going to say, what do I need to do to fight for this relationship? And that you'll then know, how hard are you willing to fight for it?
Because I think for me, I do feel fear in what both of you kind of have said. I just feel fear that people will misunderstand us, because I do know people who choose to separate, who choose divorce, and then go into a new relationship with someone else, and they go through basically the same cycles again and again. And later in life, they look back and go, I just made a mess of everything, because they didn't have tools. They didn't have answers. And so to me, the biggest thing is, and I think that's where our drive and our passion comes from, is that we want this message. We want these tools to go out to the whole world, because I know a lot of people think, oh, if I just leave him, my life will be better.
Right.
That is not necessarily true. And the other person may never change because they don't know change is possible. They may not think, I don't know how to get help. I don't know how to deal with who I am. Or we've gone to this therapist now for 10 years and there's been no change. And so it is a confusing, I think, time. The beauty that we've seen is when people just do the radical. I mean, to me, it's like if you have a heart attack and you survive, often the doctor's like, okay, you have to stop smoking, stop drinking, start walking every day. Like, they lay out this lifestyle that you've not been living.
Yeah.
Like, and it's usually people, they have to go through like the heart attack to get their attention. Yeah. Your body finally screams enough that you go, oh, okay, so my now choice is die or live this new lifestyle so that I can live. And I think if we could see our marriages that way, our relationships, our families, and go, this is the heart attack, of your marriage, of your family. Yeah. Now do something radically different. Yeah. Get the help you need, whatever that looks like. And I appreciate your caveat earlier that if you're in an abusive relationship, get help, get out, if you're being beaten, if you're being yelled at and screamed at, and we're not saying just stick it out because you're supposed to. It's like, oh, no. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
There's a lot of people who don't know the line. They're like, well, I feel I live in a lot of depression and sadness because I don't think my husband even knows I'm alive, or vice versa. And my wife doesn't even acknowledge that I live here. And it's like, what do we do with that? And it's like, yeah, that's the heart attack. That's the knocking on the door that says, demand change. Get the change that needs to happen. You deserve it, which is also often how we end our podcast by saying, you need this, you deserve this. Let's do this, because change is possible. And that's part of why Glenn and I share our story so much. 40 years in, matter of fact, we just passed we met 45 years ago, July 3rd. And it's like, okay, wow, our story is a story of redemption. Our story is that, yes, change can happen, and you can go from the bad to the beautiful, but you got to put in the work. Yeah. And for some of us, we just want to give up and walk away and think that alone is going to bring peace, and it doesn't.
Totally. And that's not what the couples that I'm talking about, because I do think that you have the heart attack moment in your house, and the radical change is, are you going to fight for me? Am I going to fight for you? Right. And if the answer is no, then what are you doing?
Right. Right.
Why are you there? And so then sometimes it does take that radical next step of saying, okay, well then we're done, for both people to then wake up, So I think I completely agree that a lot more people are in that heart attack moment than they even realize that they need that radical change. And I walk around my neighborhood and I'm like, what am I doing wrong where more people are not doing this? Where more people are not waking up to see what is possible, that they're just neglecting their marriage over and over and over again, but they're putting so much emphasis on their careers, on their children, on their parents, but neglecting the one person that they should be putting the most, care and attention to.
Yeah. And the most number of people don't believe that it's possible. We have such a bizarre working definition of certainly marriage, but relationship in general. It's such a low standard that people are like, what? We're married. We don't talk much. We're not connected. We don't have fun together, but we're legally married. So there you go. We're married. And of course, part of our goal is to redefine or maybe redefine what marriage is. Marriage is not supposed to be two people living at the same address for an extended period of time, which is basically the essence of what we've done culturally. It's like that's the working definition of marriage. And I want to get couples actually married, actually partnered, because that's a whole different level. But people don't know that. I always think about Roger Bannister, ran the first ever recorded 4-minute mile. It'd never been done before, and I don't remember the numbers, but within the next 6 months, like 27 people did it. It was something absurd. It's like, wait, what? What were all these people doing before? Well, nobody believed it was possible. And there are actually articles written back before that. It's like, it's not humanly possible. Roger Bannister breaks the 4-minute mile, and everybody's like, oh, well, I bet I could do that too. And then all these people suddenly run a sub 4-minute course. Now it's way, way, way below that. But people didn't think it was possible.
Yeah.
And once somebody does it, once they have the vision that, oh, wait, you mean that's possible? And that's part of our message is, especially, and that's part of what I love, kind of hate, but love about our story is we missed it so badly for so long. So we're not talking about you found the right one. I found some girl from Nebraska and I got lucky that I found the right one. No. We did not find the right one and we did not marry the right way. But now we have the tools, and we were beating on a nail for so many years with a toothbrush, and it wouldn't go in the board. And we're like, we have to try harder, because that's what we always heard. You have to try harder. I'm like, try harder. I'm exhausted. And now we have the right tools, and we're like, well, I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Not necessarily easy, although it does become much easier, but it's certainly incredibly simple.
Yeah.
Once you have the right tools.
I love that. Okay, so if you are listening and you are connecting with some of what we're saying, maybe you're finding yourself saying that is my home. Before we go into the core emotion wheel, let's just give like 3 steps of what people can do. And the first thing that comes to my mind is asking your partner, are you on my team? Do you want to be here? Do you want to fight for me? And then maybe even start by telling them, if you want to fight for them, hey, I am here and I want to fight for our marriage and I care about you. I want to know your truth. Do you want to fight for me? Do you want to be here? And if the answer for both of you is yes, then that is when you can become, it is me and you against what we are experiencing together. It's me and you against the nail in your foot that your partner may not have even put there. That's Wes and I would get in so many cycles because I'd have a nail in my foot for my kids being home all day in COVID, and he would come home and think he put the nail there. He had nothing to do with the nail. And now we are fighting over a nail that he had nothing to do with. And so then you can break down by using the core emotion wheel, which we have for free on our website. You're about to see us demonstrate it here. Using this to find out, where did the nail come from? And how can you team up together to remove it? And then if that's asking for more help, if you need additional resources because the nail is too deep, you need a doctor, then you can reach out, find a therapist, reach out to Dr. Glenn and Phyllis and get the help you need to remove that nail.
Yeah. Wow.
I love that. At the beginning of the year, and if you've listened to all the podcasts, you already know because you've heard this one. Our son Sky said, Mom, just 5 minutes a day, just get outside 5 minutes a day. And walk, that was his thing. Just walk out for 5 minutes. And the 5-minute thing changed so much for me. And it is even something that I'm hearing right now in my life, like 5 minutes, just do 5 minutes of stretching, just do 5 minutes. Like I'm one of those who thinks I have to do an hour or I have to do 30 minutes. So I get defeated before I even try.
Yeah.
And, the core emotion wheel is a 4-minute exercise. And for many of us, it's like, just do it every day. for many of us, we don't even know ourselves well enough to do comfortably the core emotion wheel every day. Like, as in, I know for me, when Glenn says, "So babe, what's happening with you?" I'm always like, "Oh, what? Me? Wait, I don't know. I don't just live in that space." So I have to slow myself down to go, "What's happening with me?" Which is all about the core emotion wheel. And it's like, "Oh yeah, sad. I feel a lot of sad today." But I need to tune in to me. And that's what the core emotion wheel is all about. Then I can communicate to him. If I don't even tune in to me, how in the world am I supposed to communicate to him what's happening with me? He just senses something's happening with me. Like, oh, she's having a bad day. Well, really, no, I'm just super sad. And I'm also hurting because I'm in pain. And so it's like, oh, if I would just tell him that, then he would know what's happening with me.
Right.
And so do the tool, like do that tool. We have people who go, "Oh, I did it once. I didn't like it." It's like, well, 5 minutes, 5 minutes to improve your relationship. 5 minutes to
4 minutes.
Well, yeah, but 5 minutes or less, guys. Like this is something that will change your life for yourself and your relationships all around you.
And truthfully, you may not like it the first 20 times you do it.
Right. Absolutely.
Some people, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would also say that, it would make, no one would say, I ate healthy for a day and I still felt unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right.
So obviously,
I didn't lose
there's
50
no
pounds
point.
in one day.
I worked out once and I'm still overweight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what? No, of course you're going to do this
Over
numerous
and over
times.
and over.
I went to work for a week and I'm not financially independent, so I quit. Like, that doesn't make sense. Of course, it takes consistency.
Yeah.
My recommendation for people is just the 3 phrases all day long. This is the reason we say go to Amazon.com, get the extra large box of Ooooo's, smaller box of What Happens, little box if I missed it. So all day long you're going, what's happening for me here? What's happening for us here? What are we missing? What's happening? And you're literally doing that. Phillis, I don't count, but we use the 3 phrases probably at least 15, 20, 30 times a day, maybe 50 times a day, because we're always trying to find ourselves as individuals and then trying to find each other. And that's how we connect so incredibly, because we're always on that mission. I wake up in the morning on the mission to find myself and to find my partner and vice versa. And that's what makes life so incredibly rich and fun.
Love that. All right, core emotion wheel time.
All right.
Who's
I'll
gonna do
start.
So let's do, you don't have to, but we should do an issue-specific wheel about the cruise.
You do that.
Okay.
I'm not.
Phyllis has other things on her
I
heart.
have other things on my heart.
Okay, well, fine. I'm going to do that.
So you're going to go first because yours is going to be fun.
Well,
No, go ahead.
maybe.
Go ahead. Do it.
Of course, so much joy. I mean, I couldn't list all the joy points. It was outrageous. Just, we're just addicted now for life. It was just amazing. I have fear about that. We talked a lot about that on the cruise, that I grew up thinking doing something that brings you joy is bad and wrong and ungodly and just evil. So it feels fearful for me. And there's shame in that as well. That's like, oh my gosh, we went on a 16-day cruise. How ungodly is that? That's a horrible thing. And they're like, wait, what? But it just keeps, coming back to me. I do feel some guilt. We were away from our people, our home, our responsibilities. And so that's just a delicate balance in trying to figure out, what is the balance in that. Let's see. I felt hurt. We had one tense moment between us. That was a real painful thing. It was early on in the cruise, and it took us a little bit to process through that. Some sadness in that, because now I want to sign up for a cruise where we don't have a tense moment at all. That'd be fun. Lonely? Goodness, lonely. I think I felt some loneliness because we were the young people on the cruise mostly.
Right.
And almost everybody we met had been on many, many hundreds, if not literally thousands of cruise days.
Yeah.
And we're sitting over here. We're just the little inexperienced people that have only been on 20-something cruises.
Yeah.
Which is so weird. When people would ask us, we'd be like, oh, we've only been on like 23 cruises. So we're the young, dumb ones in the group. I think there's loneliness in that. And anger. Anger, just that we had a tense moment. That's just so dumb. And we mustn't do that on the next cruise.
Yeah.
I think
All
that's
right.
8.
So mine is not about the cruise. It's just here and now. sadness that our dear friends are moving away.
Yeah.
Definitely felt really heavy with that.
Mm-hmm.
My hurt is physical, just the pain in my leg at all times.
Yeah.
I guilt and shame for just even this week missing with you and having a hard time hearing your hurt. I think anger, just that we miss using the tools, like that we miss in being able to just hear each other's hurt or each other's pain. Lonely. I think I always feel lonely when that happens and I feel misunderstood and don't feel that there's space for in a sense, what actually happened, which is the logistic side of life. Let's see. Fear. I think fear in the moment is that I can't figure out the pain and that I will live in pain, and which it's so limiting. I can't walk with you, which I feel a lot of sadness about that too. Let's see. Lonely. Did I say that? I did. Sad. Did I get them all? Joy. I would say in the moment, joy of, even last night we were already talking about, the next cruise. We've got.
You mean the next 15 cruises?
Right. Well, that's true. We're already planning them all out, all over the world. A lot of fun with that. So that's definitely a lot of joy. I know we get to go to the beach in the middle of August. A lot of joy about that. So, that's probably the joy. And interesting enough, I think the joy I feel a little limited in at the moment, because my sadness this morning of saying goodbye to our friends right before we did the podcast is really heavy. Like my sadness in that, because it's, when people move away, it's really, like, oh my word, I can't just go have coffee. Like it's going to really change our time of interacting. We'll have to be so much, it'll be so different, even though I know we'll see each other again, but it's going to be different. So definitely feel sadness, heavy sadness today.
Get that.
Is that all of them?
Yeah, you did it.
Okay.
So I feel some guilt because I set a bad example. I made a comment during her wheel. Never, ever, ever do that. Don't ever interrupt someone's
Oh,
wheel.
did you? I didn't even notice.
Well, I said the next 15 cruises.
Oh,
Shame on
okay.
me.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have said that.
Oh, okay.
I just don't want to set examples.
It sounded
for
like an
a
ooh to
bad
me.
example.
So.
Oh, okay, good.
Here you go. Thank you all so much for doing that. And I do want to say in that if you noticed when Glenn was saying his anger, it's that we had a moment of tension. So that was like the two of them together against what was happening. So even in just that wording, it wasn't like, I'm angry because you did this to me on the cruise. It's because we experienced tension together on the cruise. And so I thought that was just a really beautiful example of even what we talked about today. That it's not you against your partner, but it's the two of you together against the tension, against the conflict. And so, as always, we are so, so grateful that you joined us. We're really excited about this next season that we're coming into with the connection codes. And if you have not already left us a 5-star review, it really does mean so much to us. It helps us grow our podcast, to bump it up in the algorithm for new people to find it. It also gives us the opportunity to guest podcast with other people and for us to get the word out. It gives some credibility. I'm just shooting behind the curtain. It helps us out so, so much. So if you can leave us a 5-star review, and those notes mean the world to us. And as always, thank you for being here. We are here to support you. And if you're like, okay, it's time. We haven't done the foundations course yet. It's time. We've got to do it. I want to go deep with my partner. I want to stop living the way that we are right now. That is a great step 1 to go ahead and do. And you can use the discount code podcast for 20% off. And I will link all of that in our show notes. This is the masterclass that has changed thousands of couples' lives. We got a card in the mail just today from someone saying that they will cherish what they've learned for the rest of their life, that it's changed their life. And so we are so grateful to hear from people when that happens. So we do all of this. We share our lives because,
as Phyllis referenced before, you need this.
You deserve this.
So let's do this.
Let's do this.